normal guy trying to live in the woods and make some money out of being.
Marty Meierotto's name became famous when he appeared on the History Channel's hit reality show, Mountain Men. For many fans, Marty was not just another TV personality, he was the heart of the show. He lived far away from modern society, choosing the cold and dangerous wilderness of Alaska over the comfort of a regular home. While others might think of hunting, trapping, or living in a cabin as something extreme, for Marty, it was simply life. He loved the snow, the mountains, and the challenge of surviving in places where most people would be afraid to stay for even one night. His story is both inspiring and heartbreaking. It is inspiring because it shows how one man followed his dream, no matter how hard it was. But it is also heartbreaking because that dream came with dangers, losses, and sacrifices that few people truly understand. Marty's life was not only about surviving in the wilderness, but also about balancing family, work, fame, and tragedy. His decision to leave the show left fans shocked, but for Marty it was about protecting what mattered most: his family. To understand why so many people admire him, it's important to go back to where it all began. To his childhood, his journey to Alaska, and the choices that shaped him into one of the most respected men of the wild. Marty Meierotto was born on July 10, 1966, in northern Wisconsin. From an early age, he was surrounded by the outdoors. His parents, Thomas and Karen, taught him and his brothers the basics of living close to nature. Marty grew up alongside his brothers, Jeff and Steve, spending hours exploring forests, rivers, and snowy landscapes. Instead of fearing the cold or wild animals, he felt excited by them. While most kids might play video games or hang out in town, Marty preferred to learn trapping and hunting. His family worked in the fur business, and Marty developed a passion for it very young. He once said he loved chasing wolves, an activity that many would find terrifying, but for him it was thrilling. These childhood experiences shaped him into a person who was fearless in the face of danger. After high school, instead of going to college, like many of his friends, Marty made a different choice. He decided to join the family fur business and dedicate himself to a life that connected him directly to the land. However, trapping in Wisconsin was not easy. There were fewer animals to catch, and competition was tough. Marty realized that if he truly wanted to live the life he dreamed of, he needed to look elsewhere. This desire eventually pushed him to make one of the biggest decisions of his life, moving to Alaska, a land of endless wilderness, extreme cold, and more opportunities for a trapper who was ready to risk it all. In 1985, when Marty was just 19 years old, he and his brother Jeff drove to Alaska. Their plan was simple: try trapping for a short time and see if they could make a living. But once they arrived, they were captivated by the beauty of the land. Alaska offered something Wisconsin could not: vast forests, untouched snow, and plenty of animals. Marty quickly fell in love with the place and decided to stay. But life in Alaska was far from easy. To pay for his dream, Marty had to work many different jobs. He was a janitor in Fairbanks, did construction, and even logging. These jobs were not glamorous, but they gave him enough money to buy his first traps and a simple tent. Whenever he was free, he spent his time in the wilderness, practicing his skills. Living in Alaska also meant facing some of the harshest winters on Earth. Temperatures could drop to 30 or 40 degrees below zero. But Marty was determined. He built a small cabin that was easy to heat and placed his trap lines miles away from town. At first, many of his friends did not understand why he would choose such a difficult life. They wondered why anyone would give up comfort and safety for freezing nights in a cabin. But Marty knew that this was where he truly belonged. Over time, he became more skilled, more confident, and more connected to the wilderness. The struggles he faced only made him stronger, preparing him for the challenges that were yet to come. Marty Meierotto's story is one that has inspired millions around the world. Known widely through the History Channel's popular show, Mountain Men, he became a symbol of survival, courage, and dedication to a life far removed from modern society. While many people dream of living in comfort, surrounded by technology and convenience, Marty chose a completely different path. He decided to build a life in the harsh and dangerous wilderness of Alaska, where winter storms, wild animals, and isolation were part of daily life. To most people, this sounds like a nightmare. But to Marty, it was his dream. He was not just surviving, he was thriving, building a life that connected him deeply to the land and its challenges. His story is heartbreaking not because he failed, but because of the heavy sacrifices and dangers that came with living so far from civilization. The cold nights, the fear of wolves, the struggles to provide for his family, and the eventual decision to step away from fame, all show a man who lived honestly, even when the world was watching. To truly understand Marty's journey, we must look back to his childhood, his first steps into the wilderness, and the reasons why he became one of the most admired survivalists of our time. Marty Meierotto was born on July 10, 1966, in northern Wisconsin. His childhood was filled with outdoor adventures. thanks to his parents, Thomas and Karen, who encouraged him and his brothers, Jeff and Steve, to spend time in nature. Growing up, he didn't have the distractions of modern life, like smartphones or endless entertainment. Instead, his entertainment came from exploring the woods, setting traps, and learning the old skills of survival. His family worked in the fur business, which meant trapping was not just a hobby, but part of their livelihood. From a very young age, Marty learned how to handle traps, track animals, and deal with the tough conditions of the wilderness. While most children might be afraid of wolves or the freezing snow, Marty felt excitement and curiosity. These experiences shaped his fearless nature. After finishing high school, he didn't follow the traditional path of college or a regular career. Instead, he stayed with the family for a business, dedicating himself to a life closer to nature. But Wisconsin's opportunities for trappers were limited, and Marty wanted something bigger. His desire for adventure and his dream of becoming a full-time trapper pushed him to consider a place where wilderness was still pure and UNTAMED-Alaska. When Marty was just 19 years old, he and his brother Jeff decided to head north to Alaska. They packed their belongings into a small car and drove 4 days until they reached Fairbanks. Their original plan was simple: try trapping in Alaska for a short time and see if it was possible to make a living. But once they arrived, the vast wilderness captured their hearts. Alaska was unlike anything they had experienced before: mountains stretching endlessly, rivers cutting through frozen valleys, and wildlife roaming freely. Marty immediately felt that this was where he belonged. But starting life in Alaska was not easy. To survive financially, he took on small jobs such as working as a janitor, construction laborer, and logger. These jobs paid very little, but they gave him enough money to buy traps and simple supplies. At night, he stayed in a tent or small cabin while spending his free time exploring the land and setting trap lines. The winters were brutally cold, sometimes reaching 40 degrees below zero, but Marty's determination never weakened. Friends back home might have questioned why he would choose such hardship. But for Marty, the wilderness was not hardship, it was freedom. Slowly, he built a life in Alaska that matched his childhood dream, setting the foundation for the remarkable journey ahead. For Marty, trapping was not just a way to make money, it was his calling. Each season, he set out into the wilderness with only the basics: his traps, his rifle, and his determination. He built small cabins along his trap lines, some of which were miles away from the nearest road. During trapping season, he often traveled by snowmobile, covering long distances in freezing temperatures just to check his traps. This lifestyle was full of risks. Snowstorms could appear suddenly, making it impossible to find shelter. His snowmobile could break down miles from his cabin, forcing him to walk for hours in deadly cold. The danger of wild animals such as wolves and wolverines was always present. Yet, despite the hardships, Marty loved this life. Every animal he trapped was proof of his skill and survival. Unlike others, he did not trap for thrill or cruelty. He did it as part of an ancient tradition, a way of living off the land. This life built him into a man respected by other trappers and survivalists. His strength, resilience, and knowledge of the wilderness made him stand out even before he became a television figure. While Marty dedicated himself to trapping, he also needed stable income. That's when he decided to join the Alaska Fire Service as a smoke jumper is a specially trained firefighter who parachutes into remote areas to fight wildfires. This was not just a job, it was one of the most dangerous professions in the world. Imagine jumping out of an airplane into the middle of a burning forest, carrying heavy gear, and knowing you are completely isolated until the fire is under control. That was Marty's life during fire season. For more than 2 decades, he worked as a smoke jumper, facing fires, unpredictable weather, and life-threatening conditions. This career gave him even more respect in Alaska, proving that he was not only brave but also committed to protecting others. Being a firefighter added another layer to his already dangerous lifestyle, showing that Marty never chose the easy path. Whether it was fire or ice, he always faced life head-on. Marty's life might have remained unknown to the wider world if it wasn't for the History Channel's show Mountain Men. The series aimed to show the lives of people who lived far away from modern society, relying on old survival skills to make it through each season. When Marty joined the cast, audiences were immediately drawn to him. He wasn't trying to impress anyone, he was just living the life he had always lived. Viewers saw him ride snowmobiles through storms, set traps in freezing weather, and struggle against nature's challenges. Unlike some reality TV stars, Marty was authentic. What people saw on screen was the truth of his life. His honesty, toughness, and dedication to family made him a fan favorite. For many seasons, audiences tuned in to see if Marty would survive another harsh winter, and each episode only increased the respect people had for him. However, with fame also came pressure. Fans loved watching him, but Marty never wanted to be a celebrity. For him, trapping and survival were personal, not entertainment. Living in the wilderness meant Marty often faced life-or-death situations. The Alaskan environment is unforgiving. A broken snowmobile could mean freezing to death if he couldn't find shelter. Falling into icy water could lead to hypothermia within minutes. Once, Marty shared how wolves followed him along his trapline, watching from the shadows. He knew that one wrong step could make him their prey. Even though he carried a rifle, the thought of being surrounded in such isolation was terrifying. On top of natural dangers, the loneliness of the wilderness was also a heavy burden. Spending weeks away from his family, cut off from communication, tested his mental strength. Many people admire wilderness living from a distance, but few realize how much fear and risk it involves. For Marty, every trip was a gamble between life and death, but he accepted it as part of his chosen path. These dangers, while terrifying, also made his story more inspiring. He continued to face them because he believed in living life on his own terms. Behind Marty's tough exterior was a man deeply devoted to his family. He was married to Dominique, and together they had a daughter, Noah. Despite his love for the wilderness, Marty never forgot his role as a husband and father. Every decision he made was influenced by his family's well-being. This is one of the main reasons why his story is heartbreaking. To live his dream, Marty had to spend weeks, sometimes months, away from his family. He missed birthdays, holidays, and moments that many fathers take for granted. While Dominique supported him, she also worried constantly about his safety. What if his snowmobile broke down? What if he was caught in a blizzard? What if he never returned from his trip? These fears weighed heavily on the family. For Marty, the greatest challenge was not the wilderness, but balancing his dream with his responsibilities at home. This struggle eventually became the reason why he decided to step away from television fame. In 2019, Marty shocked fans when he announced he was leaving Mountain Men. After 8 seasons, many viewers couldn't imagine the show without him. But for Marty, the decision was clear. His daughter was growing up, and he didn't want her childhood to be overshadowed by cameras. He wanted to spend more time with his family and less time worrying about filming schedules. In an interview, he explained that fame was never his goal. He joined the show to share his way of life, but now his priority was his daughter's privacy and his family's peace. This decision, while disappointing for fans, showed the depth of his character. Marty Meierotto's name became famous when he appeared on the History Channel's hit reality show, Mountain Men. For many fans, Marty was not just another TV personality, he was the heart of the show. He lived far away from modern society, choosing the cold and dangerous wilderness of Alaska over the comfort of a regular home. While others might think of hunting, trapping, or living in a cabin as something extreme, for Marty, it was simply life. He loved the snow, the mountains, and the challenge of surviving in places where most people would be afraid to stay for even one night. His story is both inspiring and heartbreaking. It is inspiring because it shows how one man followed his dream, no matter how hard it was. But it is also heartbreaking because that dream came with dangers, losses, and sacrifices that few people truly understand. Marty's life was not only about surviving in the wilderness, but also about balancing family, work, fame, and tragedy. His decision to leave the show left fans shocked. But for Marty it was about protecting what mattered most, his family. To understand why so many people admire him, it's important to go back to where it all began. To his childhood, his journey to Alaska, and the choices that shaped him into one of the most respected men of the wild. Marty Meierotto was born on July 10, 1966, in northern Wisconsin. From an early age, he was surrounded by the outdoors. His parents, Thomas and Karen, taught him and his brothers the basics of living close to nature. Marty grew up alongside his brothers, Jeff and Steve, spending hours exploring forests, rivers, and snowy landscapes. Instead of fearing the cold or wild animals, he felt excited by them. While most kids might play video games or hang out in town, Marty preferred to learn trapping and hunting. His family worked in the fur business, and Marty developed a passion for it very young. He once said he loved chasing wolves, an activity that many would find terrifying, but for him it was thrilling. These childhood experiences shaped him into a person who was fearless in the face of danger. After high school, instead of going to college, like many of his friends,